Well, Carter's testing out the new fire suppression system, not because anything's on fire, but the thing also doubles as a good window cleaner. Now, is that enough volume to really put out a raging fire on the combine here? Probably not. Once it gets that far, it's too far gone. But if you catch it in time, boy, that thing can come in handy. All right, don't use up all the water in case we got a fire today. I wasn't planning on ever having to use this fire suppression system, but doggone it, it might come in handy. I gotta say, when Elmer's asked me to test out this card, testing out the fire suppression system for actual fire suppression was definitely not on my bingo card. Well guys, last night after a lot of thought and consideration, I came to the painful conclusion that my red Case IH combine just ain't going to cut it for canola. So I decided to trade for green. What do y'all think of my new purchase? This morning, University of Tennessee Extension brought out their little plot combine to cut these fungicide plots right here. Pretty neat little machine there. You got the operator, and then you got somebody sitting there beside her that's measuring all the data. It's got scales. It sends a sample inside the cab there. Pretty neat how this thing works. Y'all want to talk about expensive combines? Y'all think our combines are expensive? Guess what the price tag on one of those is? About 500 grand. So while my red combine might not be doing the best job ever in canola, I can tell you I'm not going to be switching to that green brand. But anyway, I don't know if Dr. Heather Kelly's going to publish this data or not, but whenever she compiles all the data and stuff, I'll be sure to let y'all know what the results are of this fungicide trial, especially next winter when it comes time to make our considerations for fungicide spraying in canola next year.
So Mia and I are out here checking out the canola stubble, as I have to plant double crop beans tomorrow into this. I'm going to show you exactly just how tough these are. These do not fall over. These are some stalks. That is no joke. So this will be interesting to see how the planter is going to do. This is it hurts. It hurts to walk through this. She hates it as well. Not like the fun she had when it was earlier this spring. But as you can see, this is pretty tall. It is up to my chest. This is our first crop, so I don't really know what we can compare it to, but it's really interesting. Yeah, big things happening. It's something to be positive about when it's been a very trying spring. And I guess if we can grow the mess out of it, man, it would be amazing to replace wheat, since, we can grow great wheat, but if we can grow even great canola and the prices is better, well, it just makes sense. So we'll have to see tomorrow how well the planter is going to do in all of this.
All right, we're back cutting. It's just a little bit after lunch. Had some things to do this morning. We got the planter loaded up and ready to start planting. It's still a little too wet to be planting, but I think Kelly's going to be able to do that tomorrow. I had to change out a load cell on the planter and everything. Andy hauled that first load we cut yesterday, hauled it to the river, Moisture, I think, was like 8%. Didn't look like any docks or whatever for foreign matter, so they took it, no complaints. Right now, Andy's back on the sprayer, trying to finish up spraying our cotton. Him and Carter had to stop yesterday because the ground was just too wet here in Crockett County, and he was leaving what he thought was some unacceptable ruts. So after giving a good day of drying yesterday, he's back spraying cotton again today, and don't think he's having much problem. So for most of the day, I think Kelly's going to be on the truck hauling our canola to the river. Of course, she's not going to be too terribly busy because, I mean, low ground speeds, you know, low bushels per acre, we don't get things filled up real fast. I just got down and done a lot more scratching in the dirt. You know, I'm really concerned about how my combine and stuff is performing with this tiny seed, and just trying to keep every seed I can in the combine. And after looking over my combine real good, I'm real happy with the way it's set. I'm not losing much at all out the back of the combine. However, the header loss is pretty bad, and where I'm losing canola the worst on this header is each end of the header where the divider is rubbing against the unthreshed crop. And then I also noticed I've got two little trails kind of right down on either side of my feeder house here. And after tracing where the seed's coming out from, where it's coming out from is where those side drapers are moving this way towards the center and then going under, and it's throwing it on that center belt. And right there where the side draper meets the center belt, I guess it's catching some seed and pulling it back up underneath. And though right there where those two belts meet the center belt on each side of my feeder house, that's where it's coming out from. And I mean, there ain't nothing I can do about that, unfortunately. It's just that this seed is so small and tiny. I mean, you're going to lose quite a bit of it no matter what you do. And then of course our second greatest loss is all the way across the cutter bar where our reel is you know, touching the crop and just causing some of those pods to instantly shatter before it even has a chance to make it into the header. And so I'm running my reel as high as I can and still bring the crop in, and also as slow as I can, just to be as gentle with this crop as possible. But man, this canola just it just shatters so unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, even some group 3 soybeans that have been sitting out in the field in the month, and some of them are already starting to pop out on the ground. Those pods are still not anywhere close to as brittle as what these canola pods are. You know, we don't have a whole lot of varieties to choose from, but I think one of the Pioneer varieties, this is Pioneer 303. I think one of the other ones, I can't remember the number, I think it's a lot more shatter resistant. And I'd be interested to see if, you know, we just don't lose as much from it when we're harvesting. If the pods just hold together just enough to get inside the combine to where it can be properly threshed and separated. So all y'all canola producers out there, I know I've been asking a lot of advice from y'all ever since we planted this crop, and I appreciate all the help y'all have given me. I've learned a lot about this crop, and some of y'all's tips have been absolutely invaluable. You know, I'm reaching out again on your experience on, you know, how to minimize these pods shattering, you know, when we're harvesting them. All right, let's do a little talking about what this canola is going to be used for, because that's a really exciting topic for me. You know, a lot of our commodities that we grow, you know, as a farmer, we really don't have a lot of control over what the final destination for these commodities are, or where these commodities are finally going, or what they'll actually be used for. You know, we deliver them to the granaries, and the granary sells them to whatever buyer wants them, and then ships them off to wherever the buyer wants them to go. You know, our cotton, we have absolutely no control over where that winds up, whether it's used domestically, overseas, or what it's actually used for. We have no control over that. Wheat, same thing. We deliver it to the river. It might be used domestically. It might be used to make chocolate chip cookies, or it might be used for animal feed, or it might be shipped overseas. You know, we don't have any control over that. Same way with soybeans. Corn, to some extent, we do have control over where it goes and what it'll actually be used for. We can deliver it to the river and then we lose all control over what it'll be used for. We got an ethanol plant about the same distance away from the river, and well, if we deliver the ethanol plant, we know that corn is going to be used to make ethanol. And the same way with Tyson. You know, all of our corn the last several years has been going to Tyson. We know our corn is going to be used for chicken feed. Now with this canola, we know exactly what it's going to be used for. You know, canola is an oil seed, a lot like soybeans. It is used to press the oil out of the seed, and seeing how unbelievably tiny the seed is, you think you get much oil out of that thing? I mean, there can't be that much oil in canola, but actually there is a lot of oil in canola. You know, you go to the grocery store and you're looking at your cooking oils. You know, you got vegetable oil, which is primarily soybean oil, or you can also buy canola oil to cook with. All of this canola is, we're delivering it to the river. It's going to be put on a barge and shipped down to New Orleans, to where it's going to be pressed to extract the oil from it. However, this oil is not the kind of oil that you're going to buy in your grocery store. The oil coming from this canola is going to be used strictly for the production of sustainable aviation fuel. So the next time you hop on a jet after the next few months, there's a good chance that that airplane is being powered by fuel that was originally grown on this farm right here. Now, I know there's a lot of debate, and you know, biofuels is a hot topic to a lot of people, and I understand all the arguments and everything. But the fact of the matter is that our fossil fuels are non-renewable. Once we use what's there, there's no more. I'm a huge proponent of multiple alternative sources of energy, just to lessen our reliance on fossil fuels that cannot be renewed. American farmers have the ability to produce a lot of the energy that is required by America today. You know, whether it's, you know, corn for ethanol, soybeans for biodiesel, or canola for sustainable aviation fuel. You know, it's not like that we're taking these acres away from actual food production and food costs are going to skyrocket because of low supply. You know, we don't have to worry about that. There's still going to be plenty of fuel. You know, American farmers right now can produce an overabundance of all the commodities that we need to feed America. You know, in fact, that's the big reason why we've got, you know, relatively low commodity prices, is because we as American farmers are overproducing. So why not take a few of those acres like we're doing? We're taking 60 acres out of our traditional 500 acres of winter wheat. We're growing winter canola. We're lessening the supply of domestically produced soft red winter wheat, so hopefully consumers can work through the excess that we have. We start getting a little bit better wheat prices, but we're taking those acres and we're producing another crop that is going to be used to produce fuel for airplanes. You know, rather than relying on oil or energy out of the Middle East, or even, you know, the non-renewable stockpiles of oil here in the U.S., we're producing the feedstock for a fuel that can be produced year after year after year after year. It's renewable. And in a lot of cases, especially right now with a war going on in Iran, these renewable fuels are cheaper than what the fuels are made from non-renewable sources. You know, ethanol is significantly cheaper than what gasoline is. Biodiesel, I'm not sure. I know traditionally biodiesel was a little bit more expensive than regular diesel, but seeing as how regular diesel is over $5 a gallon, I'm pretty dang sure that biodiesel is significantly cheaper than regular diesel. So if you buy a blend at the pump, that's lowering Americans' cost at the pump to fill up their vehicles. I know for a fact it is in gasoline, and I'm pretty sure right now diesel's the same way. And, you know, I gotta think that jet fuel is going to be the same way. This sustainable aviation fuel probably going to be cheaper than regular jet fuel, which should mean that your ticket to fly to on your next vacation not going to cost as much, because the airline companies are not having to spend as much in fuel. So to me, it's a win-win. I'm a huge proponent of renewable fuels, alternative sources of energy. You know, I'm a huge fan of solar panels. I think it is needed. I think it's a good alternative to your natural gas electric plants, your coal-fired electric plants, because it is a renewable source of energy. I'm not a fan of taking American farmland and converting it to solar panels, because I think there's a lot better place for solar panels, namely closer to the places that most of that electricity is going to be used, you know, the city. You know, why not cover a lot of these huge parking lots with solar panels? You can shade your customers' cars and produce electricity at the same time. Why not put solar panels in the median all up and down the interstates? You know, land that's not being used for anything. Make it usable, make it produce something. You know, I'm not a fan of taking farmland and putting solar panels on it. I know why they do it, because, well, all the farmland's cleared, it's generally flat. It's really cheap and easy to install solar panels in land that's already being used for farming. So the cost is a lot lower, but you know, it doesn't make sense to take away land that's being used for food and fuel. So anyway, that's the facts about this canola crop. That's my opinion on renewable energy. I don't necessarily expect y'all to agree. Everybody is entitled to their own opinion, but you know, I've given the subject a lot of thought, and that's what my thoughts on the subject are. All right, Andy hauled off the first load of canola to the river this morning, so we got the scale ticket, and now we can calibrate the scale on this Elmer's cart here. So do that pretty easy. Go to your menu, calibration, weight calibration, and then we're going to type in the weight, which was 52,290 pounds. Then we're going to select this load right there, because that's what we weighed, and calibrate. All right, it looks like it was reading about 2.9% high, because there's our new calibration factor. So looks like our yields just dropped a little bit, but it is what it is. We probably just lost on what I thought was yielding 55 bushels an acre, probably yielding, you know, 53 bushels an acre. So anyway, no big deal, but we got it roughly calibrated, and then we'll haul some more off. Then I'll come back and recalibrate it again, just to make sure it's got a real good calibration. Now, I'm not going to bother calibrating my yield monitor again on my combine. It's going to kind of mess the data up on this farm if I do multiple calibration factors after harvesting some of it. What I can do is on my desktop software, when I download off my yield data, I can go back in and post-calibrate it then we'll have good, accurate yield data off of that.
Alright, we're out here at the big old grain cart, haul master, and we're getting finished up with canola. I think we got about 30 acres left. What's he wanting to do here? He better just... I'll tell y'all one thing, that is a big grain cart. The tractor does awfully fine with it, with 60,000 pounds on it. We did it yesterday and it did awfully fine. I was surprised that it would even pull it like it did, but this tractor's doing what it needs to do for what we need to do. These tracks do awfully well turning around. You can turn awfully sharp. You just gotta watch out for that spout right there. But that canola looks really pretty in there with that you know, black grain cart. That done gave me a big old remote and a screen. What we doing? I guess that's it. We're not gonna load on the go. For some reason it's saying there's 2,500 pounds or 2,560 pounds on the truck.
Well, just keep up with your sheets and we'll sort it all out then.
I guess send that truck, because I didn't ever load it. That is just beautiful though. That canola is beautiful. I don't know where Andy is. He needs to hurry up though. He's gonna have a full truckload come here soon.
All right, after closely watching my header here for quite a bit, I finally identified where the worst loss on this scraper head is. Like I said, right here on each side where this thing is rubbing against the uncut, it's shattering a lot there. But here in the middle, I found exactly where it's leaking from. You know, I told you previously it's leaking right here where the side draper meets the center one, and I thought maybe just catching seeds and flipping it back up under the belt, which I'm sure it's probably doing a little bit, but mainly where it's coming from. You see right here, we got this ledge right here, and typically in wheat and soybean harvest, this kind of just fills up with dirt and it's a nice ramp down to the belt. Well, here in canola it hadn't, but it is absolutely, I mean, it's filled with seed. And with this knife oscillating back and forth, creating vibration, you see right there, it's sliding. When it's vibrating, this seed right here is just sliding right there, sliding through that gap. So I really don't know of a way to solve that, to seal it up, because I can't. I mean, I could put a piece of metal and raise it up some, but eventually it's going to build up. I mean, it's going to go over to the side, and you can't raise it all the way up because this belt is rotating and going under. It's got cleats on it, so I don't really know what to do about that. So watch this when I kick some seed off. See that seed falling down through there? And that's lines up exactly with that trail that I'm seeing right here on either side of the feeder house. All right, canola guys, they run MacDon drapers. How do y'all fix that?
I'm still having to try to figure out how to line this thing up perfect. There we go. Ah, we're getting better. Oh yeah, that right there is fancy. All right, PTO on, RPMs up. We're gonna get them up. Now, we're gonna open the gate some, slightly, because I am not used to this thing. And we're gonna run it. Oh yeah, that's fast. That is a fast piece of machine. This is nice right here. I can just play around with the freaking thing. That's what money's about right there with these grain carts, apparently. Being able to control your nozzle. Alright, well that back hopper's getting full right there, so I'm about to slide it on forward. We're gonna open the gate all the way just cause, well, I got it set at halfway. So we got it set at 50%, 54% open. Whenever I slightly close it some, it'll adjust and tell you what the percentage is. And you can also set maximum like percentages on here. Say if you have a younger guy running in, you only want him to only be able to open it to about 20%. You can set a maximum. Our maximum was about 55%. Because if I put it to 100%, I'm gonna mess something up, aka spill grain.
All right, I'm not 100% sure, but I've got an inkling what happened when we moved back to the back half of this farm, but yields have picked up. Probably like an average 10 bushels an acre. I mean, we're routinely down through here, and this canola really doesn't look any different, but we're routinely 60 to 70 bushels down through here. I mean, I've seen as high as 90 on the yield monitor. I'll have to look back at my records, but I think what's causing this is, I know one of y'all gave me the recommendation that canola needs a lot of sulfur. And well, we're getting sulfur out of our chicken litter, about 20 pounds an acre, but don't necessarily know exactly when all that's available. Instead of putting out 32% UAN when we fertilized it, we put out 28004, so it's got 4% sulfur in that. But I did an experiment last year, and like I said, I'll have to go back and look at the application map to figure out exactly where I did it. After the canola was emerged, we came back and we spread dry elemental sulfur on parts of this field just to make sure the canola had enough sulfur, because this viewer told me you need about a 5-to-1 nitrogen to sulfur ratio on canola. And I know the back half of this farm is where we spread some of it. I don't know exactly where, but there might be something to that elemental sulfur. Now my concern was well, yeah, we'll spread elemental sulfur, but will it actually be available for the plant to take up, because elemental sulfur has to be converted into the sulfate form, and you know that requires microbial activity. Well, you know, the bulk of the lifespan of the canola is during the winter months when, you know, the soils are cold and there isn't a lot of microbial activity. So I didn't know if the sulfur would just sit there and be available for my soybean crop, or if it would start to convert over into a form that the canola could actually utilize, you know, before it was too late and yield was already set. So that's something I want to check on. But if I find that there's definitely a correlation between the applying the extra elemental sulfur in the fall, I'll definitely be sure to report back.
Like they got me hooking up to the little guy. I don't know how. You think I can?
You may have to go around and get on your low side.
We can try it. I just got the other side. Yeah, we're going to go the other side. That side's too, it's got too much of a steep. Yeah, go to the other side. Yeah, that's a goofy little combine right there. They said that costs about the same as ours does, and I don't know if I would have paid that much for that. The header alone's about $50,000. Grab my phone for this one.
We might be about to test that big Elmer's cart out. That should be enough to load Kelly up, get her to the river. At the minimum, that's going to be a 2.5 hour trip. Now, we haven't been setting any kind of speed records getting this canola harvested. I mean, it's low bushels per acre, slow ground speed. I've been doing a lot of stopping to get drone footage, a lot of B-roll shots of the combine and everything, but I think I got a lot of that out of the way. So, and I definitely want to get done with the canola today. So we're going to start pushing things, see what my combine can do. And we're going to need the capacity to store what we got until Kelly gets back, which at minimum, if there's no line, is going to be a 2.5 hour round trip. So that 1,300 bushel capacity of that cart is about to come in handy, especially considering, you know, our cart is a 875 bushel cart, so an extra 425 bushels is going to be nice. All right, I've been talking about how good the Draper feeds. This does happen every once in a while from time to time. I mean, that stuff is light and fluffy. It's not a constant problem, but like we're on a hillside and the Draper's trying to pull the crop uphill towards the center, and I don't know, from what I hear, an auger head might be a better header for canola. You know, a Draper is pretty much superior in every other crop that we harvest, but I don't know, an auger head might be a little bit better choice. Although I do have concerns with that auger, you know, rubbing against the crop, bringing it in, you know, how much threshing is going on right there, and I wonder how much header loss there is. But it's going to grab the crop better to bring it towards the center. Definitely not going to have that problem of it ridging up. And then also, of course, there's no gaps in the header for the seed to fall through like there is with the Draper and the belts and everything. So I know last year, Dylan Joyce, you know, they had a honeybee header on their 9500 combine. And this year, you know, they got a new combine and they've got a bigger auger head on there. So once we get done with harvest, I'm gonna have a conversation with him and see if he noticed any kind of difference in header loss with auger head this year versus the Draper last year. All right, we're knocking on the door, getting done with our canola crop. We got, I don't know, about 4 acres left in this field and 2.5, 3 acres in a field across the road, and we'll have this wrapped up. So now that I got 60 acres of harvesting under my belt, 60 acres of growing canola, I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that I've learned on canola. Start off with the harvesting because that's definitely the freshest on my mind. But if you've never cut canola before, you're going to have to do a lot of trial and error finding out what works with your combine settings, and then you're still probably not going to do a job that you're really happy with. So I plan on growing canola again next year, and I'm probably going to look at a few different things to tweak on our equipment, maybe some concaves, maybe some attachments or something for the header. I don't know, but definitely going to look into all of that. When harvesting canola with a combine that's not, necessarily set up properly to cut canola, don't plan on setting any kind of speed records unless you want to run all your profit out the back of the combine. Power consumption is not an issue in harvesting canola, but separation and cleaning is with as light as that seed is, and you need to try and keep a real light mat of chaff and stuff on top of the chaffer, because if you get too much ground speed and that mat on the chaffer gets too thick, you can't really increase your air pressure to lift that mat up, otherwise you'll blow seed out. So you get a thick mat, you're just going to carry it all out the back. I think my rotor is doing a pretty good job the way it's set up. Probably might need to look into some specialty concaves for this combine. I think the small wires from Case IH, they're fair, but there's probably a lot of room for improvement, so definitely going to be looking at that. When harvesting canola, seeing as how much damage my dividers are doing going in a straight line, do not try and follow a curve around while cutting, because that divider, as your combine's turning, will push over into uncut crop, and the shattering is going to be just devastating for that. So straight lines and auto steer is a whole lot better cutting canola than trying to follow contours around terraces or whatever. Something I want some advice on. I heard back this winter about maybe some products that you can spray at desiccation. It's like a sealer for the pods, but it helps to minimize the shattering of it. If any of y'all have any experience with those types of products, let me know what the product is, cost per acre, where I can find it at, because if we grow this variety again next year, which there's a good chance we are, because it's a good yielding variety, but it's not one of those shatter tolerant varieties, that might be something that I definitely want to take a look at if those types of products actually work. All right, things I've learned agronomically on canola. Canola, while it's a winter crop like wheat, I think it prefers a little bit different environment than wheat. Now, we went through a really dry winter and then a moderate drought in the spring, and I've noticed whenever we're go through swaths of deep topsoil, the yields are definitely pick up, and then we get on like top of some thin knobs, the yields are definitely falling off. So there was definitely some drought damage to this canola crop. There's no doubt in my mind of it. Whereas wheat, all the years that we've cut wheat, when we get in our better ground, I really don't see higher wheat yields. I've seen some of my highest yields on our thin knobs, and typically because we get plenty of rain in the winter, and those are going to be your most well-drained areas. When we drop off in our real good stout ground that makes good soybeans, corn, and cotton, I really don't see the yield increase with wheat. It's pretty uniform from your good spots to your bad spots. Not so in canola. If you're gonna make great yields on canola, you need to treat it more like you would a corn or cotton crop. Put it on your better yielding ground. I don't think it's as drought hardy as what wheat is, and I think that it responds to your better ground just like your corn and cotton and soybeans do. I think we did pretty good on our fertility this year. I might do some tweaking next year, because the stems, while they bloomed, they aborted a lot of those pods. So on top of every stem, we can see this much stem on top that doesn't have any pods, but you go down that far, then it's covered up with pods. So I don't know if that's environmental conditions with weather. Drought probably could have played a big part in it. It also might be maybe we were a little shy on our nitrogen, even though the plant didn't visually show us any symptoms of being nitrogen deficient. As far as sulfur goes, I'm going to take a good look at my application maps and overlay them with my yield maps and see if I can see any correlation to applying, you know, that 35 pounds of elemental sulfur, and see if that played much of a factor in it. An insect that we really need to watch closely on canola, that we saw it start to become a problem, and in fact there's some areas of the field where the canola does not look good at all. It looks like we got a really reduced stand, but aphids, I think I talked about that on a previous video, but we had aphids come in early this spring pretty bad, and they were kind of hot spots through the areas, but where those hot spots are, the canola suffered really bad. So that's an insect, you know, I definitely need to be scouting for next year, and probably need to be a lot more proactive on controlling aphids than what I was this year, because I think that definitely had an effect in some spots. As far as our fungicide, I think we did it about as well as we could have. I probably should have been a little bit earlier on my first fungicide application. You know, I probably should have been spraying the fungicide there in late December, early January, before our really cold weather moved in, because December was warmer and a lot more humid than what it normally is. And white mold came in, you know, earlier. You know, it came in at a time where we really wouldn't expect it to. So if we have similar environmental conditions in the future, I need to be a lot more aggressive on the front end on scouting for white mold, and potentially, you know, spraying for it. You know, that's not really something I want to do, because, you know, end of December, first part of January, you know, my sprayer's winterized, and the last thing I want to do is come out here, spray for white mold, and then have to re-winterize my sprayer. But probably if that situation arises again, I mean, I'm definitely going to go ahead and spray for the white mold, just so I don't lose any stand. But rather than like winterizing it with antifreeze, you know, more likely we'll have, you know, at least 50 to 100 gallons of some liquid nitrogen, some UAN in our tanks. And heck, I'll put that, the sprayer running through it, and then, you know, I'm not going to have to worry about anything freezing on our sprayer. As far as our planter performance and getting a good stand, good population, I was really pleased with that. You know, we planted, I think, 4.3 pounds an acre. A lot of people told me I was a little heavy, but considering we lost some stand to white mold, we lost a little bit to aphids, I think overall what I'm seeing, I mean, I think it was just fine, and really pleased with that. So doubt I want to change much on that. What I would love to do, and I want to change my rotation up a little bit, is instead of planting canola behind corn, where it's harder to get a stand because you got so much more residue to cut through, is I might start planting a little bit of some really early beans, some group 3 beans, or maybe some real early group 4 beans, just so that they can come off there in September, you know, about the same time our corn does, and plant this canola behind some soybeans, because I really think with the added nitrogen that soybean provides, a lot better, easier planting conditions with not near as much residue, I'd like to see what a canola crop would do behind a soybean crop versus a corn crop. But I'm not going to be able to do that for this fall, because we don't have, I think our earliest maturing beans is like a 4.6. So I'm probably going to come off around the 1st of October, and, you know, you're right there on the very, very tail end of planting canola. So I know for a fact, you know, I'm gonna plant some more canola for next year. But then for 2027, if I still continue to decide to plant canola, when I'm making my planting decisions next winter for 2027, probably gonna try and get I don't know, 50, 60 acres of like some, you know, group 3 or maybe really early group 4 beans, and try and put some canola behind beans. And I realize a lot of that info for all you veteran canola producers probably seems, you know, a bit rudimentary. And you're like, well, heck, I knew that. But, you know, with the way that Bunge and Chevron is really wanting to continue expanding canola acres in this area, there's a lot of new growers in the future potentially of canola that, you know, we're all still learning about this. But if I can help, you know, any new canola growers that are just starting out growing it for the first time, if I can help them with any kind of tips and tricks to you know, hopefully ease their pain, lower their risk, help them make better decisions, on managing their crop. You know, hopefully help make them a little bit of extra money. You know, that's what this channel is all about.
Are we gonna do canola next year?
I'm planning on it.
Just gonna not do wheat and just do canola?
No, we're not going to do 100% canola. It's still too risky. We don't know enough about it, and it's very slow to harvest. Carter asking about canola. I have my doubts he's asking for like agronomic reasons. The gears in his head probably turning like, how can I turn some canola into a food plot for my hunting? Well, I stopped to put my drone out, gonna get one last drone videos, and I smelled smoke, and right here in this area, it's pretty strong. I don't see any smoke. I can't see anything burning, but it's definitely smoke coming from this area somewhere. And I walked all the way around the rest of the combine, and nothing, didn't even catch a whiff of smoke, but right in this area around the feeder house, back of the header, it's pretty strong. So I wasn't planning on ever having to use this fire suppression system, but doggone it, it might come in handy. There we go. Oh, this is where we had our hydraulic leak. So when we very first got started cutting and sprayed all of this with hydraulic oil, so you know that does sticks to it, and I don't know if maybe just got on some of this stuff and got hot and started smoldering or what. I gotta say, when Elmer's asked me to test out this card, testing out the fire suppression system for actual fire suppression was definitely not on my bingo card. It's all hosed down good, I don't know. Hey, I'm not spilling it now, so don't really know what caused it, but if we got like a bearing or something going down that's causing it, I'm sure it will definitely reveal itself in proper time. You know how they say the Lord works in mysterious ways? Well, I think this right here, testing out that grain card and then having a smoldering fire, I guess that's the Lord working in mysterious ways. All right, here we are on the last little field of canola, about to get it wrapped up. I just got off the phone with Alex Hedler for Bungie, and you know, I pride myself on putting actual facts out there to combat misinformation, and I just want to make sure I got my facts straight on that sustainable aviation fuel. And come to find out, ultimately the goal of this program was for this canola to go to sustainable aviation fuel, but because of the state of the market right now, what's going on with Iran, sky high fuel prices and everything, the economics actually serve to make renewable diesel fuel a better option for this canola than sustainable aviation fuel. Now notice I said renewable diesel, not biodiesel. Apparently, and I just found this out, there's a difference between renewable diesel fuel and biodiesel. You know, biodiesel is traditionally made from like your vegetable oils, soybean oil. It can also be made from used cooking oil. And while it is very similar to diesel fuel, it's not the exact same thing as diesel fuel, and it has to be blended with at least a little bit of diesel fuel in order for it to function properly. Whereas your renewable diesel, it's a direct replacement for diesel fuel. You can run straight renewable diesel in a diesel engine with no problems and no modifications, is what I was told. So just because the economics, this year's crop is going to be going most likely for renewable diesel fuel. Some of it might still be used for sustainable aviation fuel, but what he was telling me is that most all this is going for renewable diesel fuel. And I was curious about the yield of renewable diesel fuel from canola, and what he told me is that each bushel of canola, 50 pounds of canola, will produce approximately 2 gallons of renewable diesel fuel. So we're going to produce around 3,000 bushels of canola off of 60 acres. So that 60 acres of canola is yielding enough to produce around 6,000 gallons of diesel fuel. So just with that perspective, on this 60 acres of canola that we grew this year, there will be enough renewable diesel fuel to almost cover my entire fuel bill for the entire year. You know, typically in a year we'll use somewhere around 7,000 to 8,000 gallons worth of diesel fuel. So will the diesel fuel off this that's produced off this canola, will it come back on my farm? I doubt it. As far as I know, I don't think renewable diesel fuel is actually sold in this area, or at least not by my fuel suppliers, but hey, who knows? Maybe in the future. But the ultimate goal of the Bunge Chevron program is for all of this canola to go to produce sustainable aviation fuel. You know, aviation fuel is real similar to kerosene, which is real similar to diesel fuel. There are some differences, but they're pretty close. It's not different like gasoline and diesel fuel is. So while you might not fly to your next vacation with aviation fuel produced off our farm, if you got a diesel truck, there's a chance this renewable diesel fuel off our farm might be getting you to and from work. Well, there goes the last of the canola we just got done. I was hoping it would yield enough to go ahead and completely fill that sucker all the way up. But it looks like we're going to have to wait, put some wheat in there to be able to really test the capacity of that grain cart. Anyway, we're going to get this unloaded, get stuff moved back to the shop. Carter and Andy going to get started, get things serviced for tomorrow. And I got one last thing to do before we close out this video. Well, Andy was just unhooking the header, and he caught a whiff of smoke too. And we looked over all of it, and I can't find out what it is. But anyway, they're about to drop the header. We're gonna get it back to the shop. I know I need to do some tightening to my center draper, and we'll inspect the feeder house and draper and everything real good. See if we can find what was maybe potentially getting hot, if we got a bearing going out or whatnot. But anyway, we'll take a look at that in the morning. All right, this morning I got the planter all serviced and everything filled up. Man, Kelly's going to enjoy planting the beans without those saddle tanks. But anyway, after this stuff's being cut a day or so, this ground is firmed up a whole lot. I think it's going to be some great planting conditions. So while I'm waiting on Kelly to get back from the river with the truck so we can unload the Elmer's grain cart there, I'm going to go ahead and get the planter set, make sure it's doing what it's supposed to do, get depth set, all that kind of stuff. We shouldn't have to do a whole lot of playing around with this planter. Should be able to pretty much use the same settings we was using when we was planting full season beans. I gotta say, I thought this ground had dried out a lot, and it has dried out a lot, but it's still pretty dang heavy. It'll do. Ideally, I'd like to give it another day, but the clock's ticking on sunlight, and it's not doing a bad job of planting. It's just a little heavier than what I thought. And we got plenty of moisture now. Right now, you know, later on in the summer we might not have plenty of moisture, so I want the soybeans in here as quick as I can to utilize all this available moisture. One of the biggest benefits of having this canola is going to be planting our double crop beans into this residue is going to be a whole lot easier than wheat. I mean, not near the amount of residue that we have with a good wheat crop. I mean, we got some thick stalks here, but I'm able to shift my guidance lines over. We're able to split the middles, and I mean, we just got some light. You know, this canola turns into basically nothing, once it goes through the combine. So a lot less residue, a lot easier planting conditions with this canola. That's one of the big benefits of it. All right, we got our seed down there, so we're going to use our plant right gauge made by Mississippi's own Coleslaw Parks to determine our depths. Man, this thing's a pretty daggum handy little tool here. Yeah, we too deep. I mean, that's 1 3/4 inches right there. Yeah, with all this moisture here, we can definitely shallow them up a little bit. All right, so we're going to shallow these up 1 notch. They're going to be about a 1/2 notch shallower than the front units, but the front units have got almost worn out blades on them. So, all right, let's get out, check it again. Find one right off the bat there. Yeah, it's a shade over 1 inch. Another one. Yep, straight over 1 inch. Well, that was quick and easy. I think this sucker set, so Kelly be ready to roll tomorrow, getting our double crop soybeans planted. I do have one more thing I want to do this planter tonight though. Got everything set up for soybeans this morning, and come to find out one of my load cells on the front had gone bad, number 23. Well, I had the planter folded up whatnot and down there by the shop, so anyway, I replaced the load cell on number 23. Come to find out, I actually replaced the load cell on number 13, the opposite end of the planter. I was looking at it wrong. So I gotta grab that old load cell that we took off of number 13 and go put it on the actual bad one, number 23, tonight, and then Kelly will be ready to roll in the morning. All right, planter set, ready to change out the load cell. Kelly just got back with an empty truck. I get to finally play with this grain cart. All right, let me see if I can remember how to do this. All right, hydraulics on, double tap that, I think. So maybe it's that. Yeah, there we go. All right, there we go. We're letting the auger down. All right, we got 45,000 pounds on here, so not gonna be quite a full truckload. Gonna be close, but not quite full. All right, gate closed, PTO on. 1,000 RPMs, that is critical. Don't make the same mistake Carter did. Choke her up. All right, gate open. And that's with the gate only 50% of the way open. Look how quickly it's going down. All right, looks like I'm a little over. Let me just over. Oh shit! Forward! Holy crap, that comes out in a hurry. Oh, uh-oh. Uh-oh. Matt made a mess. Y'all, this thing ain't no joke. Man, it comes out fast. And the gate's only open 50% of the way. Can you imagine what it does with it open all the way? Good Lord. Yep, well, I can't get it on the Carter for spilling some canola, because I just spilled probably more than he spilled. Yeah, I did not get that truck loaded evenly at all. Well, I might have screwed up my first load with it, but I like it. All right, writing down my weights just so I've got a paper trail. 44,470, Kelly. All right, now this is where we had a hard time last night. Carter could not get the auger to go down, and I was like, great, we're already having electronic issues on that. But the thing was, this scale right here knew that the truck was full, and one of its things is that it will not let you unfold the auger until you send the truck, so that a new load can be started and it keeps accurate track of the weights in the truck. So that's a super neat feature. If you remember that the reason your auger won't fold down is because you haven't sent the truck yet. So we played around with it for like 30 minutes last night, trying to get the auger down, and finally I texted the Elmer's guys, and they didn't pick up right away, and then Carter was like, hold on, I remember now, you're supposed to send the truck and it won't let you fold the auger down until you actually do. So now that we sent the truck, I think we double tap this button. There we go. All right, I done got the hang of it now. Yeah, it's folding all by itself. I'm not touching anything. Man, this sucker is super neat. Even better than I thought it was going to be. This thing is freaking awesome. Especially once you learn all the nuances, the controls, you build up muscle memory, you know what to do and what not to do on the sequence and the electronics and everything. This thing is super neat. So anyway, guys, I want to head on back to the shop. We're going to call it a day. Tomorrow, in the next video, wheat harvest begins. Are we going to be able to reverse the 3-year trend of having disappointing wheat crops? Well, we'll find out tomorrow. Appreciate y'all watching. We'll see you in the next one.